The one thing I did notice last night was the lack of running and gunning that we had seen over the last, 12 games or so? No, the Fever have been hot. They've been real hot. Till last night when cold water was thrown all over.
But here's the real problem. This wasn't just one rough night. When fans start pointing fingers at the coach, the offense, the rotations, and how Caitlin Clark is being used, that's not a one-game issue anymore. That's a pattern. And once you start looking closer, the real question isn't, was this game bad? It's something a lot harder to answer.
The Fever offense is putting up historic numbers led by record-setting all-star trio Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, and Leah Boston. The first comment, make the announcement. Thank you, Stephanie. Interesting you post this after that stinker they put up last night. Oh, not last night. It wasn't because our conductor Caitlin had the baton taken out of her hands.
Now here's what fans are really upset about, and it's not what you'd think. Nobody's just mad that Caitlin Clark shot poorly. That's the boring explanation. What's actually got people talking is that Indiana walked away from the exact game plan that had them winning. Clark was attacking, driving into the lane, forcing defenses to collapse, creating shots for herself and her teammates. That was the formula. Then out of nowhere, against Dallas, it vanished. And when a team's been hot for weeks straight, everyone notices the second that rhythm breaks. That's exactly why Stephanie White's name is suddenly everywhere. Because fans aren't just asking if the Fever had a bad night. They're asking if the coaching staff is the reason it happened. And those are two very different problems.
Stephanie White, welcome back to the kitchen. Whoa, the pressure, the violence, the heat. It's being turned back up.
Now let's slow down on the Kelsey Mitchell criticism, because it's missing something important. Just because she fired up a lot of shots doesn't automatically make her the villain here. She actually finished with 5 assists, which kind of blows up the idea that she was hogging the ball. But here's the thing about basketball. It's never just about who shoots. It's about how the defense gets forced to move before that shot even happens. If a possession starts with one player just standing there holding the rock, and everyone else is frozen, the defense already knows exactly where it's going. And when that happens, even a great scorer becomes easy to guard. So the real issue fans have isn't Kelsey shot too much. It's why did this offense become so easy to read?
Disgusted. It's like, Stephanie White's trying to talk to her, and Caitlin's like, ugh, you suck. Oh, you don't deserve a car. Get away from me. Can you not do that? Can you not shoot again tonight, Caitlin?
Now let's be fair for a second. Body language can be misleading. Clark walking away from Stephanie White doesn't prove she's furious. A frustrated face doesn't tell you the whole conversation. A coach throwing her hands up doesn't mean she's lost the locker room. But here's why these little moments blow up anyway. Indiana doesn't get to fly under the radar. This team gets watched like no other in the league, and Clark makes every single detail bigger. So the moment the offense looks stuck, fans dissect everything. Why isn't Clark attacking? Why is the ball stuck on one side? Why does Mitchell have this matchup? Why are the bigs standing there? Why settle for that shot? Some of that scrutiny isn't fair, but that's the price of coaching a team this big. And that leads us straight into the real issue.
Get-go. She's such a ball hog. Never passes the ball to open teammates as long as she stacks her point total. Actually, last night, Kelsey had 5 assists. I said during my video last night, it might be the most assists she's had all year. I shit you not. But we did not see something changed where Caitlin Clark was no longer getting up and down the court, driving to the basket. Remember, she'd been driving to the basket a lot. She'd been knocking down a lot of finger rolls, a lot of layups. Last night...
Here's the part of this story that actually matters, so pay close attention. The complaints about Caitlin Clark were never really about her jump shot. Her real weapon this season has been getting downhill. When Clark drives, the defense is forced into a trap of its own making. Someone has to help off their man. Someone has to rotate late. And that opens a window somewhere else on the floor. Clark can finish at the rim, draw a foul, kick it out, or simply use all that attention to set up the next play. That's the engine that makes an offense hard to guard. Take that pressure away, ask her to just stand and wait for the ball, and you've changed the entire shape of the possession. The defense doesn't have to collapse anymore. Help defenders can sit closer to shooters. Passing lanes tighten up, and a player who used to break defenses down before the shot even happened suddenly looks like she's just standing around, waiting for a look that never comes clean. That's exactly why nobody can explain this by staring at a box score. You have to watch how the shots actually get created. And here's the layer people keep missing. Clark's three-point shot is most dangerous precisely because defenders already have 5 other things to worry about. Her drives matter. Her floaters and in-between shots matter. Her passing matters. Her push in transition matters. All of it stacks together to make the outside shot even more lethal because a defender can't just camp on the three-point line and relax. If she's attacking downhill, they have to respect the drive. If she's comfortable operating in the middle of the floor, that's another problem for them. If she's pushing pace, the defense is scrambling before it even sets up. That's the whole ecosystem working together. So if you strip away the first domino in that chain and then wonder why the final shot doesn't look as clean, you might be treating the symptom instead of the actual disease. And that's exactly why fans are pointing fingers at how this offense is structured, instead of just blaming the guy taking the shot. Now let's talk about how bad this game actually looked, because that context matters too. This wasn't just a rough shooting night. This was one of the toughest watches of the entire season. 2 of the league's biggest stars sharing a court, and somehow the game turned into a slog. A close score doesn't mean good basketball. Those 2 things aren't the same at all. You can have a tight game on the scoreboard while both offenses are grinding through possession after possession with almost no movement, no rhythm, nothing that resembles what either team is actually capable of. And that's exactly what made this one so frustrating. Fans know what this Fever team looks like when the offense has life to it. They've seen the pace. They've seen Clark break defenses down off the dribble. They've seen Kelsey Mitchell get free for clean looks. They've seen Aaliyah Boston involved in actions that actually force a defense to move its feet. So when all of that disappears at once, the contrast is jarring. That's why the backlash to this game is bigger than one final score. Fans aren't just mad about a loss. They're comparing this version of Indiana to the version they know exists. Which brings us to the coaching conversation, and it deserves more nuance than a lot of people are giving it. Pinning this entirely on Stephanie White would be too easy. Players still have to make shots. Players still have to rebound. A coach can't physically move 5 bodies around the floor in real time. But coaching isn't just about drawing up the opening play. It's about recognizing when something has stopped working and having an answer ready. If the opponent keeps taking away the same action over and over, where's the counter? If a defense is sitting on the driving lane, what's the second option? If the bigs are getting challenged at the rim, can they be used to pull defenders away from the basket instead? If teams are loading up on Clark, can Indiana turn her into a decoy and make the defense pay for that decision? Those are the real coaching questions. That's why the word adjustments keeps showing up over and over in the criticism. This was never really about whether White cares or whether she knows basketball. It's about whether this roster has enough counters when Plan A gets taken away. That's the actual test here. And that leads straight into the biggest issue, movement, or the total lack of it. Off-ball movement isn't some fancy basketball buzzword. It's what makes defenders uncomfortable. When the only person creating anything is whoever's holding the ball, the defense gets to relax. One defender pressures the ball, everyone else stays locked onto their man. Help is easy to organize, and passing windows disappear one by one. But when players are cutting, screening, swapping spots, and constantly relocating, the defense has to talk to each other on every single possession. That's where breakdowns happen. That's where an average possession turns into a great one. For a guard like Clark, this matters even more, because her passing punishes defenders who overcommit. You don't need her dominating every single possession. You need the defense to believe she could at any moment. That fear alone creates space for everyone else on the floor. So here's the irony. An offense built to involve more players can actually make Clark even more dangerous individually, because everyone else moving around is exactly what creates the space she needs to attack in the first place. This is also the point in the season where talent alone stops being enough. Everybody in the league already knows what Indiana has. They know Clark can shoot and pass at an elite level. They know Mitchell can fill it up. They know Boston can punish smaller defenders inside. The real question is what happens when an opponent spends 40 minutes specifically trying to erase those obvious answers. That's where systems separate themselves from a simple collection of good players. A great offense doesn't need every single possession to go perfectly. It needs answers when things don't. If the first read is denied, there needs to be a second. If the second gets taken away too, there needs to be a third. If Clark can't get to the lane, someone else needs to find an advantage. If Mitchell draws extra bodies, another shooter needs to get open. If Boston gets doubled inside, the ball needs to find the open man on the weak side. That's the standard this team has to prove it can meet. Not that a bad game will never happen again, but that a bad game can expose a total lack of answers. So back to the real question, was this just one ugly night, or did it expose something real underneath? Honestly, it's probably both. One game isn't nearly enough evidence to say Stephanie White has lost this locker room, or that the offense is fundamentally broken, or that Indiana needs a coaching change. Those are massive conclusions to draw from a single sample size. But one game absolutely can expose a real weakness, and that weakness is predictability. If this offense leans too heavily on one player creating everything from scratch, or on isolation basketball, or on the same predictable sequence of passes every single time down the floor, good defenses are going to start squeezing the floor smaller and smaller. That's what should actually worry Fever fans. Not an angry tweet, not a frustrated facial expression on the sideline, not one bad shooting performance. Predictability. Because predictable teams look unstoppable when everything is clicking, and completely ordinary the moment someone takes away their first option. There's also a physical piece to all of this that can't be separated from the offensive conversation. Clark has already absorbed a ton of physical attention from defenses this season, which means Indiana can't just assume she'll win every one-on-one battle by sheer force. If she gets trapped, there needs to be an outlet ready. If she drives into a packed paint, someone needs to be occupying the right spot to relieve pressure. If a second defender comes to help, the rest of the roster has to make that decision expensive. Otherwise, you're asking your best player to solve the exact same problem over and over, possession after possession, and that's simply not sustainable across an 80-plus game season. Here's the thing that people keep getting wrong in this whole debate. You don't have to pick a single guilty party. A player can take too many tough shots while there's also a coaching issue underneath it. A team can execute poorly while also lacking a real counter to what the defense is doing. A star can have a genuinely bad night, while the surrounding structure still deserves criticism. None of these explanations cancel each other out. That's probably the most important thing to understand here. The film doesn't care about picking sides, it just shows what actually happened. And what the film seems to show is a very specific problem. Indiana simply wasn't generating easy advantages consistently. That's very different from saying every possession was badly coached, and very different from saying this team needs to panic after a single loss. But it does mean the next few games matter a lot, because now the whole league has film. Every opponent knows what Indiana wants to run, who the primary creators are, where Clark likes to operate, and what happens if Mitchell gets clean space. How this team answers that is going to tell us far more than the ugly game itself ever could. If the ball starts moving again, if Clark gets back to attacking instead of just receiving, if Boston gets real touches, and if Mitchell is scoring efficiently instead of bailing out broken possessions, then this game becomes exactly what it probably was, one bad night. But if the same issues show up again, this stops being a moment and starts being a pattern. That's why Stephanie White is going to feel real pressure right now, whether every ounce of it is deserved or not. Coaches of high-profile teams never get judged on the easy nights. They get judged the moment an opponent takes away the first option. They get judged when the star is struggling and the role players go cold. They get judged when the game turns ugly. That's simply the job. And right now she has a clear opportunity in front of her. She doesn't need to prove every decision from this one game was correct. She needs to show this team can respond. More movement. Cleaner looks. Getting Clark back into actions where she's attacking instead of standing and waiting. Making the defense guard the entire floor. Real touches for Boston. Efficient scoring for Mitchell without every possession turning into a rescue mission. That's how you silence criticism. Not with a press conference, not with a statement, but with the very next game. Fix it, and this entire controversy quiets down fast. Don't fix it, and everyone already calling for changes is going to have a lot more tape to point at. So here's where it lands with you. Was this simply one brutal off night for the Fever, or did this loss expose a real crack in Stephanie White's offensive approach? If you think the players just failed to execute, she deserves another shot to prove it. If you think the offense itself has become too predictable, the next stretch of games is about to tell us whether this was a warning shot or the start of something much bigger. Either way, drop your take in the comments. Should White stay the course, or does this offense need real changes before it turns into a playoff problem? And if you want more honest breakdowns on the Fever and Caitlin Clark that don't pretend every single game is either a masterpiece or a total disaster, make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and stay locked in for what's coming next.